After blowing away the Hurricanes to open their homestand, can the Oilers handle a winded Wild club playing its fourth game in 6 nights? We get you set for Edmonton and Minnie on the Oil Stream pregame show. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the pregame show. Tom Gazzola with you in the EST Satellite Studios. YouTube Trev holding things down back at EST HQ. And if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you very much. Please, as always, get in on the conversation. Hit us up via the nasty chat. If you're listening on your way to the rink, thank you, whether it's on our audio stream or via the TuneIn app. Appreciate that very much. And you can text us 780-218-9999 as the Oil gets set to play their second game of this 6-game homestand. Edmonton 10-12-1. Are they back? Feels like they're back for sure. Absolutely, especially after that last victory, making it 5 in a row. Can they do it tonight again against a Wild team that is tired and comes into this one with a 9-11-1 record? The Wild had their 4-game winning streak snapped last night by the Vancouver Canucks in a 2-0 loss. And I said it earlier on the Oil Stream with Dustin Nielsen that I ran into Pat Maroon just outside the hotel on my way home from the arena, and Patty looked tired. He looked more tired. I know Pat's a big boy. He's a busy guy. And I know when he's kind of tired or energized and anything in between, having traveled with him for a few years when he was a member of the Oilers, and he looked like he was tired. So the Wild did not take part in any form of a skate today. They stayed away. They stayed at the hotel. They got their sleep in, and they will look to bounce back after yesterday's loss in Vancouver. John Hines did speak at just after 5 for the Minnesota Wild. If we can find that anywhere, we will get it to you. We will hear from the Oilers side. They did hold morning availability after what was not an optional morning skate. It was actually an obligatory morning skate, which is good to see. I know sometimes in earlier this season, people were getting annoyed by the optional morning skates, and that was not the case today. So lots to get to. Matt Kassian will stop by as well around 5:45 as he will bring us Game Changers, as always brought to you by Damon Bunting Remax Elite. All right, YouTube Trev, how you doing today, pal? You feeling good?
Yeah, feeling really good today, Tommy. It's another game day, and yeah, it was hard to focus on this Oilers game, obviously, with all the Shohei Ohtani talk. Man, that was kind of insane and still is. But this. I'm looking forward to tonight, even though it is the Minnesota Wild. That's a team that has seemed to always they've had the Oilers number over the years, just from growing up watching this team. As long as I can remember this, there's every team has a team that just seems to has their number, and for whatever reason, the Minnesota Wild seem to be that team for the Oilers. So I know for the Calgary Flames, it was the Anaheim Ducks for all those years. I think it was like 16 years they didn't win in Anaheim. So yeah, no, the Minnesota Wild, they play a very defensive game. Trap, that's a term that's going to be thrown out there a lot tonight. So it should be a good game. Here's hoping there's some more goals scored. This Oilers team is definitely a lot different, this time around than when they first played them earlier in the season. That was in a huge, very disappointing 7-4 loss. Man, the Oilers just made the Wild look like an all-star team that night. But
They did.
Yeah, so it's a completely different team. Like you said, Patty Maroon, hearing that he seems tired, that's probably a lot
Just
of the guys.
One guy, but Patty, it was Pat, and he looked very, very
so
for sure.
Yeah, the Oilers, if they start the game like they did the other night, I mean, they should be able to jump on Minnesota. Just the fact that they're tired. So yeah, that's going to be huge for them. So
okay,
interesting.
You did touch on how things have gone for the Oilers against the Wild in recent years. I will bring some of that up, and then I want to come back to you on the Ohtani stuff because that was kind of crazy, and I want to hear something from you. Okay, so in regard to the Oilers versus Minnesota, Edmonton has a 19-24-4 record with 3 ties all time at home against the Wild. I'm not counting the the Minnesota North Stars. We're just going with the Wild here, just to clarify if anybody's wondering. Edmonton has won one of its last 4 home games against Mini. That was the last time the Wild were here, which was December 9th, 2022. So almost exactly 1 year ago, 5-2 Oilers victory that night. Edmonton 36, 51, and 10 with 4 ties all time against the Wild. And in the last 10 meetings between Edmonton and Minnesota, the Oilers have a 1-9 record this season, or 1-9 record in those 10 games this season versus the Central Division. Edmonton 2-3-1. Minnesota, meanwhile, 2-2 versus the Pacific. All right, you talked about this crazy Ohtani stuff. What the heck is going on? Because I've kind of been tracking it, but I even looked at the damn flight tracker of the plane that people were talking about. I was like, oh, that's neat. I wonder if that's actually him. And what is the latest? Because I haven't really followed along since.
Yeah, so apparently earlier this morning, I produced the Nielsen show, and Lieutenant Eric was the one that leaked it and said something regarding that there was a private jet leaving Los Angeles. It was scheduled to leave, I think, 10 a.m. our time. Yeah. And it was scheduled to land in Toronto at like 3 or something like that. So there's all the speculation saying, oh no, it's Shohei Ohtani, he's going. And then just throughout the day, the rumors, people like that are, pretty, they're pretty credible. We're saying, oh, this, it's official. There's a press conference at 6:00, this and that. And so all that's getting, some traction. And then all of a sudden, right when I was coming to work here, I put on my Blue Jays jersey. I'm like, it's happening. I'm like, this is awesome.
Really?
Yeah, I did. I'm like, this is the greatest day ever. And this is history, literally. And all of a sudden, I'm getting ready to come here, and then I see a tweet. I forget the name, but it was someone in LA saying, no, Shohei Ohtani is still in LA. He is not in Toronto. This is all false. And as soon as I seen that, I took off my jersey. I'm like, God darn it.
Nice.
So yeah, I really have no idea what's happening. They're obviously still in the mix, but and there was a video that leaked as well saying, oh, Shohei Ohtani has arrived in Toronto, and that video was just all over Twitter. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is legit. And so
right.
But I guess that was not legit from what it seems to be. So I have no idea, man. I don't think anyone knows, but he is in LA from my understanding. He is not scheduled. That wasn't his flight, I don't think. But man, I've never been, and it's a good thing I got Twitter. When I first started at EST, I didn't have Twitter. And right. Just today, I couldn't keep off my phone, man. It was just insane. So that's what's going on.
That's where we're at.
That's where we're at. He's still in LA, in California, Southern California. So kind of insane.
Okay. But I'm glad I asked. I had no clue what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
So here we are. No Shohei Ohtani as we
yet.
roll along and get ready for the Oilers and the Minnesota Wild tonight down at Rogers Place. 780-218-9999 if you want to text in. And then if you're watching on our EST YouTube channel, thank you. We're over 6,100 subscribers and marching. Appreciate it very much. You can get in to the nasty chat. I'm going to throw the question of the night out there as well. We do have Cass coming up in about 5 minutes' time. The question of the night, straight up. What has impressed you most about the Oilers on this current 5-game winning streak? 780-218-9999 or the nasty chat on our YouTube channel. Just a pretty upfront question. What has impressed you most about the Oilers on this current 5-game winning streak? For me, definitely the defensive structure and execution in their own zone and the way that they have managed to limit the high danger mistakes that they were making for the first, 5-6 weeks of the season. And look, you do that and what happens? Well, you find a bunch of success. So all of a sudden they are getting closer to 500. And the Oilers have done so with some really smart execution in their own zone, as well as some smart play through the neutral zone. That is what my answer is to the question of the night, which is what has impressed you most about the Oilers on this current 5-game winning streak? YouTube, Trev, what about yourself?
I hate to sound like a broken record, but I mean, it has to be the team defense, just in their own end, everyone, the forwards, defense, from Stuart Skinner. Skinner's only going to be as good as this team is in front of him. I think that's just how it is. And the team's been great in front of him, right? So I think as long as the team plays great defense in their own end, covering a man, back checking, sticks in lanes. That's stuff. When was the last time we said anything about, oh, there's another rush goal coming down? They scored on the Oilers. That was just, we were saying that almost every post game during the beginning of the season. That hasn't been the case as of late. Is that Paul Coffey? I don't know, but they're just making better decisions. Darnell Nurse, everyone. They're not pinching nearly as much. They're getting the puck out. Better passes. Vinny Desharnais, like at the beginning of the year, I don't know, man. The pressure was just, he could feel it. He had no confidence, but, and I was saying the play just dies when, he has the puck. But that hasn't really been the case. He's looked way better. He's looked a lot more confident in the last, 6-7 games. So, and I honestly didn't think I'd say that because I wasn't a big fan of Vinny. I always wanted Broberg to be there just because I liked his skating more. But but no, Vinny, he's won me over. And just team defense as a whole, they've looked way better.
Absolutely. So let us know your thoughts. Thank you, YouTube Trev. Well said. As always, young man, and your thoughts on what has impressed you most about the Oilers in this 5-game winning streak. What element of their game? Maybe it's an individual or two, someone's play in particular. We want to hear from you, 780-218-9999 or via the nasty chat. Let's go into the inbox really quickly and go to Coach Mike, who says 6 straight wins. Let's go. Thanks for the Pro-Am discount. Got a toque for my son and myself, Coach Mike. Yes, the hat trick discount over at Pro-Am Sports on Oilers hats and headwear. If you didn't get a chance to check it out, it was a great little deal for all the AM nasties out there. And a big thanks to Jack and Ken over at Pro-Am for making that happen. And advertising with us works, as Dustin Bartholomew Nielsen says. Saw a lot of great tweets and images from people getting their hats with their 6 o'clocker lager, which sounds like is going to become a permanent fixture at Alley Cat. That's what Dusty was talking about. Isn't that amazing?
How cool is that?
It is. It's so cool. And it's been out for what, a week now?
Just a week.
A week. Really amazing. So to everyone out there checking out the 6 o'clocker lager, like a heartfelt thank you. And it's a damn good beer. It honestly is. It's a really good beer, and we couldn't be happier with how things have gone. And as long as people are enjoying it and Alley Cat's happy and we're happy, it looks like it's going to be a thing that we're going to see more and more of. This text comes in and says, what do you think about Connor Brown? Was this a terrible move that won't age well, or do you see upside in this signing that I'm not seeing? Seems like an expensive, non-producing second-line winger to me. No name on that text, but I will say, totally underwhelming this year. Connor Brown, 1 point through 17 games with a -6 mark and 2 penalty minutes. He has been a total non-factor, and at the price point that he signed for, no bueno. No bueno, especially with that bonus that he received. It's not a good deal right now, but maybe he becomes the Mike Pekka for this year. Remember, Trev, do you know what happened with Mike Pekka in 2006?
No, I know the name, but I was playing on the playground when this was happening.
Right. That's why I wanted to double check with you. Mike Pekka signed with the Oilers or got traded to the Oilers, I believe, for Mike York, and had a year left on his deal. He didn't have a very good regular season. He was supposed to be a lot better. It was not good. And what ended up happening was he had a really strong finish to the year where his game started to come around. And then on top of that, he was really, really solid in the playoffs in the run to the Stanley Cup final in Game 7. So, I mean, Connor Brown at $4 million with the 3.225 bonus has not been good enough. That's what I think of Connor Brown. Do I hope and expect more from him? 100%, like anybody else. And I don't think he's going to get to 40 points. But if he can salvage his game as the season progresses, score some big goals, make some key plays, contribute on the penalty kill, and then if the Oilers make a push for the postseason and get in there, he is a solid player throughout, and they go on a deep run, then it was worth it. But as of right now, no, not worth it. Not a good signing. And unfortunately, that's been the case. Thank you for the text. 780-218-9999. Let's get our game analyst in here, the one and only Matt Kassian, as we get set for Game Changers with Cass. Brought to you as always by Damon Bunting, Remax Elite. Damon Bunting, consistent top producing realtor in Greater Edmonton and among Remax realtors. He and his team would love to help you find that right home or make the move from your current home. He's a community-driven guy. He understands what it takes to make a difference in and around our city. Check him out, DamonBunting.com, or his Instagram at Damon Bunting Real Estate. Good day, Cass. You had a chance to catch up with Damon a little bit at the game on Wednesday. So did I, actually. How is our pal Damon Bunting doing?
He seems to be doing just fine and dandy. So him and his wife Leanne were on a little date night. She talked him into going to the game, and he's pretty excited to be there. I think it was one of those nights he had said where heading into it, he was like tired. He's kind of like, I don't really know. I don't know if I want to go. And then you get the 2 quick goals right away, and all of a sudden he's like, "This is awesome," and seemed to have a pretty good night. So it was good to see him. Good to catch up with them. Good to grab a little bite of food with them, and it was good. It was just kind of all went into a great night against the Carolina Hurricanes. So a lot of good things happened that night.
A lot of good things happened indeed in that big victory for the Oilers. The other night, of course, they're going to look to keep this going. It was a 6-1 win against Carolina. How will they handle the Minnesota Wild? Cass, before we dive into the 3 bullet points of game changers, I'm going to throw the question of the night out to you as well as our listeners and viewers one more time. What has impressed you most about the Oilers' current 5-game winning streak? What say you, Matt Kassian?
Their ability to all of a sudden get the really, really bad turnovers out of their game, like those 5-alarm problems, those massive mistakes in their defensive zone. It's almost like they disappeared overnight, or at least they're finding ways to not make secondary mistakes after them, right? Like it's not it hasn't been like 1 mistake, 2 mistakes, 3 mistakes, pucks in the net. They've found ways to kind of nip it at the bud and stop that, and that to me has been probably the biggest thing. Has been their ability to all of a sudden flip that switch, which is just kind of bizarre because it's usually not something that's just like instantaneous. Usually it's like a slow work in progress sort of problem to fix, but it was like overnight they seem to solve it, and that to me has been the most impressive.
Yeah, funny how that works. Like it's so bad for so long, and then all of a sudden, hey, it clicks in their mind. This is how you do it right, and here we are talking about them getting closer to 500, trying to track down some teams in front of them, and then all of a sudden, maybe they are legitimately back. But I think a lot of the consensus feeling right now around here, I'm in on this too, is they are back, and it's good to see salvaging what was an absolutely atrocious start to the season. Lots of work to do, of course, and lots of ground to cover. But tonight, the focus is the Minnesota Wild, a team playing its 4th game in 6 nights, a team that lost yesterday in Vancouver 2-0, that had a 4-game winning streak snap. John Hines is now the coach, taking over for Dean Evison, who, like Chris Knobloch, replaced a coach that was generally well-liked and did manage to get some results from his club. And now, all of a sudden, it's John Hines' job to fix the Wild as they roll into Edmonton. So with that being said, Cass, number 1 of game changers tonight is playoff buzz.
Huge playoff buzz for this game tonight. I mean, super early in the season, or it still feels like, and you're just across that quarter way mark, and the playoff implications and the 4-point nature of the game tonight are huge. I mean, you have an opportunity as the Edmonton Oilers to jump up above one of the teams in front of you and to do it while maintaining that game in hand, where if you lose to the Minnesota Wild tonight, now you're 3 points back with a game in hand. And technically, statistically, they are truly in front of you. So yeah, you should be feeling that playoff buzz, should absolutely be feeling that playoff buzz. And Minnesota seems to be feeling it. I don't know if you watched any of that Wild game yesterday, but they probably deserve to win with the start that they had in that hockey game. I think it was almost 11 or 12 minutes into the period before Vancouver had their first shot.
Yep.
And then, they score with just a couple minutes left in the period, and it was on their 3rd shot. So Minnesota came out of the gates hot and spicy, and after the coaching change, they dropped 7 with Dean Evison. And then Hines comes in, and then they win 4 in a row. Now they've lost one. We'll see if they come back down to earth a little bit here, but it's a team that's searching for its way. Certainly one of those groups we thought was going to be a pretty solid team. They have some of those high skill pieces. They have some stable, steady defensemen. Aside, there's not too much I think you can say that's negative about the team, aside from the amount of dead cap space that they have. But listen, this is a team that wants to be contending for a playoff spot. They want to have a chance to do something and make a little bit of a splash in the playoffs, and it hasn't worked out for them. So for both Edmonton and for Minnesota, this is a playoff game here. Right, this is a playoff game. This is battling for that wild card position, which is where both these teams want to claw their way into right now. So a huge opportunity, emotionally, mentally, and just from a pure standings position for both these squads. And Tommy, I expect from both of the teams that they bring that playoff energy. Now, if they don't, I would be very disappointed.
Mini with the 4 games in 6 nights, Cass. We talked about it a bit on the Oil Stream this afternoon. I listened, and I said I ran into Patty Maroon earlier in the day, and the guy looked gassed. Like, he really looked gassed. And I know Pat isn't an early riser or anything like that, but we're talking at like 11:30 in the morning, and they had just flown in. They lost an hour and all that. How much of the recent wild schedule will be a factor tonight? And how do you handle it if you're Chris Knobloch trying to get your team into this game quickly in the right way?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, Tommy, that plays right into game changer number 2, which is tempo and aggression.
Beautiful.
Because I think that's the opportunity you have here. I mean, super emotional, right? It's a super emotional time as a team. You have a coach, you're losing a bunch of games. You have a coach fired. Someone new comes in, you start all of a sudden rolling and having success and playing well. You start a game against the Vancouver Canucks. Continue to play well. You are outplaying them. You're out chancing them. You're out shooting them. The puck's just not going in and not going in and not going in. Vancouver's got nothing. They have nothing. And then out of nowhere, they get one opportunity and the puck's in the back of their net. And then there was just like a big sag where they weren't really able to ever truly recover after that point in the game. Now, it's not like Vancouver blew them out, but Minnesota at that point, it's like the wind was out of the sails a little bit, where it was just like this emotional letdown, and almost like, oh, we're really tired. I don't know if we're actually going to be able to come back and win this one. And for the Edmonton Oilers, I think you have to look at that. You have to look at how Minnesota finished that hockey game, at the disappointment, at the roller coaster of emotions that they've been feeling, that the Edmonton Oilers themselves have been on to a certain extent, and try to do exactly what you did against Carolina, which is like, let's right out of the gate shift number 1. Like, I would love, Tommy, if they start that McLeod line again. I hope they do. I hope they do.
Me too, actually.
And I hope it's like, hey, chip it in my corner for Warren Fogle. Like, let me get in on him again. If we don't have anything that's like a clean rush opportunity off the faceoff, chip it in and let me go to work, and just start applying the pressure right away and come out with all of that aggression and that tempo that they did, because we saw that from the first shift against Carolina. We saw that aggression. I want to see that again tonight, Tommy. And if they're able to do that, you are really giving the Minnesota Wild every reason to shutter it, or to at least not not be as confident in their approach to their game. And they're kind of like, well, like, I just kind of hope we win, versus going out and enthusiastically being like, no, we're going to win no matter what. Because I think I don't want to say they're totally emotionally fragile, Tom, but it's like, if you look at everything that's gone on with them as a team here, and to that loss yesterday, they're, again, fragile is not necessarily the right word. I'm looking for another one, but it's like they vulnerable. That's a good one.
Yeah,
for it. I think they're vulnerable.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. It's like they have good pieces. Like Pat was saying, I was in my 5-10 minutes with him, whatever. I was like, what the heck's going on? New coach. And, we saw that here. He goes, we're a good team. It's just, we make dumb mistakes. And I was like, oh, that sounds familiar.
Sounds really familiar.
So we kind of chuckled about that. And we'll see if the Oilers can pounce. And I like the idea too, Cass, of going back to that third line to start the game. Are they going to score like they did the other night? Unlikely, but that'd be a nice shot in the arm for that trio. And it is Matthias Janmark's birthday and his 500th game on the same day. He's coming off his
Money on
first
the
ever
board.
3-point night.
That's got to be like double money. He's going to have like $1,000 up on that board to go to the team party fund.
I love that.
It's going to be an expensive night for the guy.
I heard some discussion in the room this morning about money on the board. I didn't pinpoint exactly, and I didn't want to go, who's got money on the board? But I did hear that discussion.
100%. And it's your birthday and game 500.
Yeah.
That's a money on the board for sure. That's a double whammy. Like you're putting a big one up there. And for guys that are like guys that are on like their rookie contracts so they aren't making that much money, that's the one where they're like, I do really hope we win tonight, and I'm going to do everything I can because I don't want to lose my job. But at the same time, if we lost tonight, I wouldn't be too it might take the sting away a little bit from this one. So
funny how
money on the board.
Money on the board. All right, it is Game Changers with Matt Kassian, brought to you by Damon Bunting. Remax Elite number 1 was Playoff Buzz. Number 2 was Tempo and Aggression. Number 3, Cass, Boosh Bombs.
Boosh Bombs. I always try to be as fair and reasonable. Well, maybe not always. I typically try to be.
We try
to be fair and reasonable to players. We talked a lot on that post-game show about how good Evan Bouchard was, and he really was. He was absolutely fantastic in the offensive zone. He was pretty stable in the defensive zone. And to your question of the night, Tom, about what has impressed you most about the Oilers, and my response being that cutting down on those big, huge mistakes in the defensive zone has been the big thing. Evan Bouchard has been a big part of that, where he time and time again just had these egregious, horrible errors in the defensive zone that led to the puck being in the back of the net, spinning in circles multiple times, just trying to find where a guy is or where the puck is. Like just stuff that was not good. And I harped on him for it. Rightly so. But Tommy, he's been playing some really, really good hockey. And along the way, he was still doing some really good things in the offensive zone. I also pointed that out along the way as well. So in my defense, I think actually quite fair to how he was playing. And to be fair to how he's playing right now, he's been a huge part of this blue line in this turnaround. He is still doing those great things offensively, and he has managed at this point to largely eliminate those horrible errors from his game and those horrible turnovers in the defensive zone. I mean, I can't think of a moment in the last 3 or 4 games where we have seen him just absolutely pushed off the puck in the defensive zone. Like someone just swoop in and just kind of pop the stick and take the puck away. Haven't seen that. And that again has gone a long way to, I think, the Oilers turnaround. And for me, I just want to keep seeing more of it, because it's like him. And now with Ekholm looking like he's healthy, he's finally got Bouchard into a place where it's like Bouchard, and maybe that has something to do with it, Tommy. Maybe Ekholm being healthy and Bouchard knowing that Ekholm's healthy has just kind of helped him reset his brain a little bit and in his confidence a little bit, not being like, well, I'm playing with Matty, but he's been banged up and I still got to kind of cover for him. And I got to be thinking about this and thinking about that. Now that Ekholm's not hurt, he can just go play and rely on those instincts. And you know what, Tom, he's been great. So I just want to point that out again. And I want to say for a game like tonight, again, where you want to generate some offense, he was a huge part of a lot of those goals, 5-on-5, and I want to see more of it. Just wanted to give him the props I believe he deserves for last game and the last couple of games for Evan Bouchard.
Cass, 12 points in this 9-game point streak for Evan Bouchard. Generally plus player throughout this stretch. Like you said, he's been much better defensively. Looks like the guy that we saw in the playoffs 2 years ago. Looks like the guy that we saw down the stretch and in the playoffs last year. And it's nice to see him seemingly refinding that form relatively early in the season, as opposed to waiting till the 50 or 60 game mark. And listen, it was a disaster earlier this season. So we will knock a guy if he's not playing well, like Bouchard, who had his mistakes. Yes, he was collecting points earlier in the year, but atrocious at times defensively, among others, of course. But lately, much better defensively, and the offense continues to be generated from the back end from Evan Bouchard, and he deserves praise, and we'll give it to him, rightly so. So that is Game Changers with Matty Kassian. Number 1, Cass, was Playoff Buzz. Number 2, Tempo and Aggression. Number 3, Boosh bombs. And if you want to text us and get in on the conversation, 780-218-9999 or via the nasty chat if you're watching on the EST YouTube channel. The question of the night is this: what has impressed you most about the Oilers on this current 5-game winning streak? Cass, we're going to go around the league really quickly, and I want to get your thoughts on this one story, which I think is amazing. I feel like you might know where I'm going with this, but I'm going to update everyone on scores. Columbus leads St. Louis 2-1, and then in the other game tonight, outside of the Oilers' Wild game, Pittsburgh and Florida, no score after 1. And the great story coming out of that Pittsburgh-Florida game is the NHL debut of Mark Johnstone. And if you haven't heard his story yet, 27 years old, he was recalled from Wilkes-Barre Scranton this morning. He spent 4 years in NCAA, 2 years in the ACHL with the Stingrays and the Growlers. He did get cut by an ECHL team first, and then he did spend 2 years in the AHL with Toronto and, of course, Wilkes-Barre Scranton, or 2+ years, I should say. So tonight, he makes his NHL debut. Cass, this is an amazing story of perseverance, never giving up, especially after getting cut by an ECHL team early on in his pro career. I know you know what the struggle is like of getting to the National Hockey League. It's not always the same road for everybody, but one of these stories where we see a guy who sticks with it, and then finally gets rewarded, to me is absolutely amazing.
Yep, and that's a grind. That is a grind. And you know what? Now he will be in the company of just a shade over 8,000 people that have ever played only one game.
All time.
That's in history. Just a shade over 8,000. That's not very many that have ever played one game. And he just joins that. But yeah, it's a pretty cool story. I don't know how many guys get cut from East Coast League teams that end up playing in the NHL. Not very many.
Right.
Not very many. If any, they got purely cut. Like, not just got sent down and played back when they actually used to do like 3-way contracts, which was, they used to do those all the time.
That's crazy.
Entry-level contracts were 3-way contracts where you had NHL, AHL, East Coast League salary. And, it just warms your heart a little bit, Tommy.
It does.
It's just really cool. Like, it's like that. It is really that lifelong pursuit of I don't want to say the most unlikely of people, but it's kind of like, yeah, you didn't expect, a lot of people probably didn't expect him to do anything. A lot of people probably said it was never going to happen. A lot of people probably said it's time to think about other things and it's time to move on. And here he is, getting to live his dream and play an NHL hockey game, which is just absolutely amazing. So pretty cool story. It's a fun one, Tommy. It's a fun one.
Yeah, congratulations to Mark Johnstone. No score in that game between the Pittsburgh Penguins and Florida Panthers, just starting the second period. 2-1 Columbus leads St. Louis after 1. And then the late game tonight in the NHL, just 3 games on the schedule. We'll see the Oilers welcome the Minnesota Wild, who have been busy lately, playing their 4th game in 6 nights. Can the Oilers take advantage? Cass, I'm going to go through lineups, projected lineups, and thoughts on that, and starting goalies as well before we roll into any audio. And we're also going to, there's a message I want to get to first, too. Comes in from Brandon from Windsor via the text line, 780-218-9999. Says, boys, hopefully a big incoming win for my birthday. LFG, mix in a water. Brandon from Windsor. So Brandon sharing a birthday with Matthias Janmark. Happy birthday, Brandon from Windsor. I hope the Oilers can make it that much better, and I hope you have a fresh 6 o'clocker lager if you're watching or listening to us tonight on the Oil Stream pregame show. Cass, you want to give some love to Brandon from Windsor via the birthday wishes?
Yeah, well, just happy birthday. I'm more excited for your birthday than Janmark's. Hopefully you didn't have to put money on the board and you avoided that whole situation, because that sucks when that happens. But yeah, I don't know if you're out east. Don't know if you can get 6 o'clocker lagers out there, but you know what? Have fun, be responsible, and happy birthday.
Yeah. Maybe he's just from Windsor.
Yeah, I don't know.
And lives here now.
In which case, I hope it's a 6 o'clocker lager. Be responsible, have fun.
Yeah, there we go. So All right, let's get into lineups and starting goalies. This is what we're anticipating from the Oil tonight. McDavid between Nugent Hopkins and Hyman. Draisaitl with Kane and Brown. McLeod between Janmark, the birthday boy, and Fogle. Hamblin between Sam Gagner and Derek Ryan. On defense, Nurse with CC. Ekholm with Bouchard. Kulak with Desharnais. And so really no changes if that is indeed what they go with, and don't throw any curveballs our way via the warm-up. As for the Minnesota Wild, they are basically going with the same lineup that they had last night. We'll see if there are any tweaks. Again, they did not have a morning skate today. They did play in Vancouver last night. John Hines did have an availability at 5 o'clock our time, the new head coach of the Minnesota Wild. There's one tweak to get to, and I will point it out. For the Wild, we're anticipating Marco Rossi between Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Zuccarello. Joel Eriksson-Ek with Marcus Johansson and Matt Boldy. Frederick Gaudreau centering Marcus Foligno and Patrick Maroon. That's a good third line. Connor Dewar between Brendan Duhaime and Ryan Hartman. And then you've got Jonas Brodin with Brock Faber. Jacob Middleton with Jared Spurgeon. And the one change that John Hines discussed and our good friend Sarah McLennan tweeted out, Dakota Mermis replaces Alex Goligoski. Mermis will be paired up with John Merrill. That means no Goligoski and no Zach Bogosian for the Minnesota Wild. Anything stand out to you with regard to that Wild roster tonight, Cass?
Not overly. Not overly. And actually fairly deep defense. It's not like they're people that you all look at it up and down and are like all-star, but actually all mostly really solid players. Very, right. Very solid. When they're playing well, the Minnesota Wild do play very good team defense. They do play up-tempo aggressive, and then you got some guys that can burn you, like a Kaprizov up front. So there's a mix of types of players in this Minnesota Wild group, and if it's a group that's executing, they can be dangerous. Not necessarily a group that's going to run away from you like 7-8-9-1, but they can burn you in transition if you give them an opportunity. But not anything overly surprising, I would say, from the Minnesota Wild lineup.
All right, let's go into starting goalies now for the Edmonton Oilers. No surprise here. 25-year-old Stuart Skinner, 9-7-1 on the season with a .303 goals against average, .889 save percentage with one shutout in 18 games this season. Skinner versus the Wild, 2 appearances, 1-1 record, 2.01, I should say, goals against average, .946 save percentage in those 2 games versus Minnie in young Stuart Skinner's career. As for those Minnesota Wild, we will see the 39-year-old, the future Hall of Famer, the always colorful and I think generally enjoyable Marc-Andre Fleury starting in goal. 4-4-2 with a .321 goals against average and .884 save percentage in 10 games this season. Fleury versus Edmonton, pretty good record in all those great seasons with Pittsburgh, and then a nice run with the Golden Knights. He has a 16-5-1 record versus the Oil, .232 goals against average, .932 save percentage with 2 shutouts in those 22 appearances versus Edmonton. Marc-Andre Fleury, Cass, any tales to regale us with or anything like that about Marc-Andre Fleury?
Yeah, I played against him a couple of times. Didn't score, but that's,
You got Carey Price though a couple of times,
yeah, but I didn't get Marc-Andre Fleury.
That's okay.
No, I mean, veteran guy. He doesn't get the start yesterday. They decide to start him today against the Edmonton Oilers in the second night of the back-to-back. Maybe thinking that Edmonton rolling a little bit better than Vancouver right now, and wanting to have a guy that gives you just that let's call it veteran savvy that maybe isn't going to be intimidated against McDavid and a Draisaitl, and a guy that has had some success at times against them in his career. But listen, he's a Hall of Famer. He will be probably a first ballot type of guy. Has had a tremendous career and still can play a little bit too. I will say our good friend Jeff Delorier was commenting on his pads and equipment the other day, and basically said that Fleury stole all of his ideas from him. He took credit for it. So
do they know each other? They must.
Oh, I'm assuming so. I didn't ask him, but I mean, those there's not. Yeah, are they? I'm trying to think if they're actually even the same birth year. They might be. I would have to check to see if they're the same draft year, those two. That
So
would be
JDD said that Fleury stole all of his goalie pad ideas, like design stuff. Because the big thing Fleury had, and this was what coming out of junior, was like he had all yellow pads.
yeah, well, he went to all yellow pads, and then Delorier went to all orange pads, and
Yes.
then he got absolutely shredded by the media here and by fans being like, "Ooh, how dare you!" And then no one really, because Pittsburgh was Pittsburgh, so you don't deal with the same media. And then when Fleury won the cup, all of a sudden it was like, "Oh, it's awesome! He's got all the same one color pads," and it was like everything was okay. And I think Delorier was a little bit like, "What the heck?" Like so. Yeah, he probably should be the one to tell that story. I'm completely just kind of going with my assumption on
Yep.
exactly how it goes.
Yep.
But it was something like that. It was close enough.
I thought JDD had some really nice setups when he was, especially in his time in Edmonton. Like it's when goalies really start to get flashier with their gear, and I think the pad companies were able to do a little bit more without creating extra weight. Because I remember Cujo had awesome pads where it had like the mouth of the dog in the pads and on the glove and blocker. And I remember asking him about those, and he was like, "Oh, those were awesome. I love those, but they were so heavy."
Yeah.
And I think, around when JDD and Fleury were coming in, that's when companies were starting to get a little more creative and maybe a little bit better with the fabrics that they were using. So it wasn't as heavy, but that's funny. That is a funny thing. I enjoy Marc-Andre Fleury. He's still a good goalie in my books, has some great setups, and we'll see if the Oilers can get to him tonight. Cass, a couple more to throw your way before we go into some audio and video. This one I saw earlier. It was, I'm still waiting. It came from Coyote Steve, who says he's waiting for Nugent Hopkins to wake up and shake off some of the rust. He's got 19 points in 23 games, only 5 goals this season, Cass. What would you say about Nugent Hopkins this season?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't expect him to score 100 points. It's not like he's been absolutely horrible the last little bit. Would I like to see him finish some of the chances? Sure. That would be nice to see. But it's not like he's been bad, Tommy.
Mhm.
It's not like he's been bad. Now, if things get tough again, and he still isn't finding ways to drive plays, because most of those points have been off the back, let's say off the back of other players. Like they haven't been, Ryan Nugent Hopkins digging a puck out, beating a guy, and saucing a pass through to the back door. I mean, that
Sure.
hasn't been the type of points he's gotten. And if they hit a rough patch again, to be able to look at him and to say, well, he's one of the guys you might need some more from offensively, I think that would be fair. But for me, for right now, I'm not worried about Ryan Nugent Hopkins. Again, I don't think anyone, or if you were, you shouldn't have been expecting him to get 100 points this season. You expect him to, get somewhere between 70 and 80 points and just kind of regularly chip in, which is actually largely what we've seen. It doesn't feel like he's doing it, because it's not like he's not on pace for over 100 points again, which is why it's kind of like, oh, it just feels like he's not really doing anything. But he's actually contributed and chipped in. He just hasn't necessarily been the driver on a lot of those plays.
Fair point. He is playing the wing now, and he has made some good plays to set up goals, but yeah, he hasn't scored a ton. He's missed the net a lot on whatever slot shots that he has been able to fire away, and that's something I've noticed about him. Maybe last year he was hitting those post and in shots a little bit more than certainly he is this year. One more for you, Cass, via our text line. 780-218-9999 comes in from Fort Sask. Ryan says, do you think the Oilers should get Arbor Xhekaj from Montreal? That's from Ryan in Fort Sask. And I have my opinion on this, Cass, but I'd like to hear yours as a guy who is known for his fisticuffs and tough, rough play. Do the Oilers need a guy like Xhekaj, who's probably a 7th D man, who can give you some tough minutes and intimidate?
Yeah. I mean, he is a guy that has at least played in the NHL a little bit. He is a lefty, so you might be able to slide him in there. It's an interesting one to me. Because he does kind of play that style where not really anybody on the Edmonton Oilers does. And I know Vinny Desharnais tries to a little bit, but that's not his natural bent isn't to play a little bit more of that rough and tumble. Like he's just a big guy, so he does.
Yep.
But this would be an interesting one. Now, if you were to ask me, should you trade like a Broberg for him? I would say no.
Okay.
I don't
Fair
think
enough.
I wouldn't want that to be a straight across. I think the potential upside for Broberg is still too much. If you were able to, let's say, throw a 4th round pick at this thing, then yeah, I'd take a peek at it.
Okay.
I'd take a peek at it. And let's say a 4th round pick and a not grade A prospect sort of thing. Like if you had to do something like that, I'd take a peek at it. So it does intrigue me a little bit because you don't have a lot of that nasty. And
Right.
as the nasty chat knows, sometimes you got to get a little nasty. So
Yeah.
I would consider it. It just depends on what the actual trade is.
Right. Interesting. Things kind of not going well for Jacky in Montreal. Marty St. Louis had a conversation with him. Apparently didn't go particularly great. We saw Georges Larac tweeting out some thoughts and information on Jacky as well last week or earlier in the week this week. So time flies. But anyway, Cass, that'll do it for Game Changers. Great stuff as always, my friend. Joaquin Gage filling in for you tonight.
Absolutely, buddy. Thanks a bunch, and we'll talk to you later in a couple days.
Absolutely. All right, Cass. Take care, pal.
You too, bud.
That's our game analyst, Matt Kassian, with Game Changers, brought to you as always by Damon Bunting Remax Elite. Keep those questions and texts coming in. Answers to question of the night if you want. 780-218-9999. What has impressed you most about the Oilers on this current 5-game winning streak? I saw a text earlier that said team play. Yes, team play has been much, much better. That one, I believe, came in from Brett. That's impressed him the most. Teamwork, to clarify and to quote Brett via the nasty chat. All right, keep those coming in. 780-218-9999 or via the nasty chat. Time now to go inside the Oilers locker room. Let's start with head coach Chris Knobloch. YouTube Trev, if we're ready to do that, let's get to it.
And outside of the offense, there's details in his game that I'm sure you'd like to rub off on a whole bunch of players. What are the key details in his game you think that are getting him where he is?
Well, I think a lot of things he does well probably get unnoticed. One, very good on the forecheck, and that starts with putting pucks in nice places where you can recover them. It's such a small detail, but it's something that's needs a nice touch, putting pucks in nice spots and not getting turned over. So that's part of it. Another one is just how well he protects the puck. And you see his first goal, he picks the puck up below the net. He protects it there, and then he has a nice little cutback, protects it there, and then the way he drives to the net, it's tough to check. He doesn't quite have the speed of McDavid or Leon or some of our guys who use their speed as an attribute. Not that he's slow, but I think the biggest thing of how hard he is to check is how well he protects the puck, and he uses his body doing that.
Minnesota has a new coach, similarly, and you guys have allowed 8 goals in their last 5 games. They've allowed 7 in the last 5 games. What have you seen on film that's working for them defensively that you have to be aware of offensively?
Yeah, they probably just had a reset and looking at, anytime there's a coaching change, it's usually defensively you're giving up too many goals, and there's many reasons for that. But, I think they just had a reset, and they're playing a lot better hockey, a lot harder. And, obviously last night they didn't get the result that maybe they deserved or wanted, but they're going to be coming out pretty hard against us.
When you see Hyman, do you show tape of how Hyman drives the net to some of your other players to show them how that's done?
We like to share clips on whatever we're doing well. So far this year, we've done a lot of breakout skills, the defensemen showing the guys who do things well and how we can improve it. Same thing with the puck protection in the offensive zone. There'll be something, we'll be throwing in some of those clips of Hyman down low and being able to drive the net. That was one thing I thought as a team, probably led by Zach, with his 3 goals and his many opportunities to score. But overall as a team, I thought we did a heck of a job getting to the net and driving, and something we need to continue pushing that message to our players.
Having Janmark on a team as a coach, is that comforting, knowing he can play on the fourth line, the third line? If somebody gets hurt, he could play on the second line in game?
And in the first line, he moved up, and when Hyman was sick, and we used him in that situation. I believe that that it's very important to have those players that can move up and down the lineup, and usually those players that can move up and down the lineup is just because their details are so good, whether it's being able to make a pass or protect the puck in the offensive zone, but also just they know their responsibilities on all the systems, whether it is the forecheck in the neutral zone or in the defensive zone coverage. Those are the players that they have a skill of just making the guys on the ice around them better.
Chris, obviously a great start for your team last game, specifically from that third line. What is some of the messaging that you have for them in terms of changing their mindset and making a play rather than not making a mistake?
I think that's been my message to the team since I got here, is just try and make plays, but high percentage plays. We don't want to be reckless, but we do want to be confident to try and do those things. And if we're safe all the time, it's just going to be a pretty boring game, and it's going to be not a very successful game. I think those two had a lot of confidence going into that game, but I think they, not necessarily what I told them, but I think it was how they practiced. And they had a great week. We had those 3 practices. I thought they were outstanding, and it just led into the game. So hopefully we can, they don't relax and they enjoy that, but they're ready to do that again.
All right, that was Chris Knobloch talking prior to the game, following the team's morning skate. Like some elements of his team's game, certainly, especially in this last 5 games where the team has won all of them. And I did ask what you thought and what has impressed you most about the Oilers on this current 5-game winning streak. That is our question of the night. Chris, via the Nasty Chat, says the defense are playing fantastic hockey, taking sticks, making first passes, making key hits. They've started the big change. Yeah, that's a great point, Chris. Thanks for that. Appreciate it very, very much. All right, who's next, YouTube Trev, on our list of players to get to in terms of audio and video?
We've got the birthday boy, Matthias Janmark, already.
All right.
What comes to mind when you reflect back on your career so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's a long journey, I guess. 500 more games than I ever thought I would play, so that's the good part. And then, obviously, between game 1 and 500, there's been a bunch of obstacles, injuries, and last year getting sent down and whatnot. But I'm happy to be here today, and hopefully I got plenty more.
Not to get too personal or too deep, but what have you most learned about yourself throughout the course of 500 games?
Hard to say. I mean, as a hockey player, you learn a lot. I think as a young player trying to get into the league, you focus on your own, and you're pretty hard on yourself, and you think a lot. And I think that's settled over the years with switching teams here and there, going through free agency and whatnot. You're a little more stable as a player. I feel like I'm a better player on an everyday basis. And off the ice, I think mostly what I learned was probably going through my injury my second year, getting through that and getting back to play.
You always pick up something from a new coach. You've played for so many different coaches. Every time a new coach you play for, do you learn something?
Yeah, I talked about that the other day. I feel like you go through a lot of coaches, and it's even like our team this year. You have a coach that's set a good system, and we played good under it, and then we get a new guy coming in, but we learn all the things. We keep all the things we learned from the old coach, and then the new coach comes in with a new perspective and learns you new things, but you keep the old things, and it's a good mix that way. And I think for my personal career, it's been like that. You have coaches, and you try to, as I go to the next coach, you kind of figure what you liked about the old coach and what you like about the new coach, and then you go to the next one, and it kind of sticks with you. Every coach I've had 1 or 2 like really good things that I've learned from them, and that you keep that with you going forward.
As a player like you, know that some nights you'll be on the fourth line, some nights you'll be on the third line, some nights you'll be on the second line, as opposed to an offensive guy who always knows he's in the top 6.
Yeah, that's a little going back to, I think, when I was younger, you would think about what line you were on and whatnot. Like going into training camp, you would look at the boards and now I'm older and I know that what happens in training camp could change in period 2 of game 1. So I don't care too much about what line I'm on. I'm gonna try to bring my game the same way, and then obviously if you get elevated and you get to play with the good players that we have here, you want to capitalize and try to have a good night and enjoy it. But I know pretty much what kind of player I am.
Is it rare to have your birthday the night you play 500 games?
Yeah, it's funny how it coincides for sure.
Speaking of the game tonight, you're going up against a Wild squad that's only allowed 7 goals in their last 5 games. What's it going to take to kind of break down their structure?
Yeah, I mean we got to prepare for any possible game tonight. It's two teams with new coaches, like I said, and kind of rejuvenated our seasons. And whatever game they bring, we gotta up it a little. And we're on home ice. We've been good at home ice, so. Yeah, we really got to be prepared for everything. They're a high-scoring team, but they can also shut you down. So we got to stick with it. I think our last 2 games pretty much tells like it could be either or. But we got to be prepared for both.
What do you like of the makeup of your line right now?
Really like it. Folks, really hard worker. Can make plays. Good shot, scorer, and Clowder is just speed through the middle. And I think he's really picked up his defensive game, so he takes care of the whole ice, but really like speed through the middle, which I love to play with. So it's been fun, and hopefully we can get something going.
That's the birthday boy, Matthias Janmark, celebrating his 31st birthday today, playing in his 500th career NHL game. Janmark, 77 goals, 111 assists, and 188 points, a career -12 in those 499 games. 13 games played this year, a goal and 4 assists. 3 of those assists coming the other night, and a -2 mark, which he certainly could work on. Those 5 points coming in the last handful of games. Well, the 3 the other night, and then he had 1 against Winnipeg and 1 against the Golden Knights. So Janmark starting to play well, and was in on the goals the other night, especially with that line with Foegele and McLeod getting in on the action, scoring goals as well. Good to see. And if Janmark's happy with those 2, maybe they've got something there. 2 veterans in Foegele and Janmark on that line, and then you've got the youngster McLeod maybe finding his game finally, which would be nice to see. I know missing training camp did not help for young Ryan McLeod. This text comes in and says, "Hey guys, how much will Ben Gleason play tonight? Appreciate your work, guys." That's from Box Pounder. Box Pounder, it doesn't look like Ben Gleason is in tonight. Looks like the lineup will stay the same. If there's anything we see different from warm-up, we will pass that along your way, but it's expected to be the same lineup. And if you are wondering what that is, it's McDavid with Nugent Hopkins and Hyman. Draisaitl between Evander Kane and Connor Brown. Ryan McLeod with Warren Foegele and Matthias Janmark, who we just heard from there. And then James Hamblin with Sam Gagner and Derek Ryan on defense. Darnell Nurse with Cody Ceci. Matthias Ekholm with Evan Bouchard. Brett Kulak with Vinny Desharnais. Holloway still out. No Gleason. No Adam Ernie. As for the Minnesota Wild, this is what we're anticipating. Marco Rossi between Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Zuccarello. Joel Eriksson Ek with Marcus Johansson and Matt Boldy. Frederick Gaudreau with Marcus Foligno and Patrick Maroon. Then you've got Connor Dewar with Brandon Duhaime and Ryan Hartman. On defense for the Wild, Jonas Brodin with Brock Faber. Jacob Middleton with Jared Spurgeon. Dakota Mermis paired up with John Merrill. No Alex Goligoski. No Zach Bogosian. Your goalies, Stuart Skinner for the Oil and Marc-Andre Fleury for the Wild. All right, YouTube Trev, we've got some more in terms of interviews that we had from earlier today. Who's our last one?
We've got Zachary Hyman, and here he is.
The mood in a room right now compared to, like a month ago, just how much different it can be when the pressure comes off and the confidence seeps in.
It's like the old saying, winning solves everything, right? I think that's the reality. Hockey's fun when you're winning. It's a crazy game. You can, there's a fine line between winning and losing, and when you're losing, it's, everything's just a little bit worse, right? Like you come to the rink, you're a little bit upset. You don't have your confidence. and you're just trying to find your game. And when you're winning, you want to keep that feeling. You want to keep winning. You want to keep your confidence high, and you want to maintain the things that you do that are allowing you to win. So we're in a good spot right now, and it's a big one for us tonight.
Zach, what do you think is most attributed to your guys' improvement to the goals against in the last 5 games?
Oh, man. It's a good question. There are a number of things. I think everybody's play has elevated, I would say, from Stu out. Like, I think the goaltending's been really, really good. Stu's been awesome back there. I think the penalty kill's been phenomenal. I think our ability to limit line rushes against has definitely improved a ton. And I think all those things together add up to less chances and obviously less goals.
What do you think has led to that? Because the talent in this room has stayed the same. The skill set has stayed the same. What has been the driving factor towards making those improvements?
I think Chris coming in, he's definitely put his spin on things. I think that's helped. I think from just a confidence level, I think as things start to turn and maybe get a little bit more of the balances too, I think things compound positively too, whereas I think when we were in that rut, we weren't necessarily playing horribly. It was just compounding of a number of things that, when things are going bad, they just seem to always go bad. And when things are going well, you want to keep that feeling. So I think we're getting some good bounces. We're getting some great goaltending. We're buying into the system. I think we're tracking back hard as forwards. I think our D are holding lines. I think we're just kind of doing all those little things that make you successful.
Zach, you've been finding the back of the net. You're leading the team in goal scoring on a roster with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Do you just relish these kind of moments?
You're just having fun. I think since I've been here, I've just tried to kind of develop my game and just play well with those guys, I think, and try to complement them as well as I can. And fortunate enough to be playing with Connor and Nuge, and we've had some really good chemistry, so that's been fun. And yeah, just when you play with those guys, you're going to get some looks, and just trying to make the best of them.
Yeah, he's been doing that for sure. Coming off a hat trick the other night, Zach Hyman this season, 15 goals, 11 assists, and a +6 in 22 games. Excellent. He's on a bit of a heater right now. We mentioned that hat trick the other night. Let's go into his last few games here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 game point streak for Hyman. He's got 3 last game, 1 the night before, 3 more against Anaheim, 2 against Washington, 2 against Carolina, 11 points in that last 5 game stretch. So pretty darn good. What do you like in YouTube, Trev, about Zach Hyman? Not that he's been pretty, him and Evander Kane have been pretty consistent this year. I think Hyman obviously benefiting from playing with a healthy McDavid, but him and Kane really have been consistent for the majority of the season.
Yeah, no, 100%. And they're just such good complementary players. Whether it's Connor McDavid lacing them up with Zach Hyman or Leon Draisaitl, they can just read off of either one of those players so well. And with Zach Hyman, it's just his work ethic. It's so impressive. I mean, he never gives up on plays. He's always like, if it's a play that's going to be icing, he still thinks he has a chance, and you're always going to see that just 100% effort from him. And I think that's why fans just love him. He never gives up on plays, and that goal he scored the other night, it was just a perfect example of that. He's happy. He's just the fans love him. It's so good to see. And I seen a stat the other day, him and Austin Matthews just comparing their seasons right now, and they're having very identical seasons, and it's just crazy that Hyman's getting like $8 million less whenever Matthews' contract starts. So they're getting a lot of they're getting a lot of bang for their buck with Zach Hyman. He's continued to improve every season with the team, and it's looking like it's not going to change anytime soon. It's so impressive to see. His one-timer is really good. He's an underrated playmaker, and his skating, protecting the puck, is probably one of his biggest assets as well. So, yeah, Zach Hyman, huge fan. Love the guy. What a player.
54 points his first year as an Oiler, 83 last year, 26 so far this season for Zach Hyman. All right, let's take a look at what's going on around the National Hockey League tonight. Pretty quiet night. Edmonton and Mini is the late game right now in Columbus. The Jackets lead the Blues 2-1. late in the second period. Kirill Marchenko has a goal for the Jackets. Robert Thomas had the answer for the Blues. And then Adam Fantelli picked up his 8th of the season to give the Jackets their 2-1 lead. And then we talked about that Mark Johnston making his NHL debut. Perseverance, a great story there. Played for a couple of ECHL teams after getting cut from an ECHL team. And then a couple years in the minors with Wilkes-Barre Scranton, as well as the Toronto Marlies. And then today got the recall and is making his NHL debut. The goal scorers in this game, also late in the second period, between the Penguins and the Panthers. Riley Smith has his 7th of the year for Pittsburgh. And then the answer from Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who's having a bit of a renaissance this year. He also has 7 goals on the year, that one coming late in the second period. So 1-1 in that game with about a minute left to go in the second down in Florida. Then the Oilers and the Wild get underway in just over half an hour as we roll along here on the Oil Stream pregame show. You can text us 780-218-9999. I've got a few texts that I want to get to right away here, or you could get to the question of the night. What has impressed you most about the Oilers on this current 5-game winning streak? If you're watching, thank you. You could text us via the nasty chat as well, and I'll go to some texts via the inbox right now. Big Uke says, Tommy, the last few games, do you think there's anyone other than Brown who needs to get going, or is it more just keep playing the way you are for the team? Big Uke, when it's good and the team is having the success it is, I think that generally the recipe is there and you don't want to mess with it too much. Would you like to see more from Draisaitl, Kane, and Brown the other night? Yeah, definitely. They had a quiet evening. With the fourth line, would you like to see a contribution there? Yeah, of course. But right now, I think everything seems to be going well. Kulak and Desharnais seem like they've settled in. Bouchard has been great offensively, but his defensive game, like Cass was talking about, has been better. Ekholm seems healthier. Nurse has been better. There's been less noise about him lately because his game has improved. Cody Ceci, who with Brett Kulak have been, I think, pretty solid, rock steady on the back end for the Oilers for the majority of the season. They're kind of like the answer to Kane and Hyman up front, where those two have been really solid and consistent throughout the season. I think Ceci and Kulak have been that on the defensive side of things for the Oilers. Kulak did get off to a rough start. The first 4 or 5 games for him were pretty, I would say, bad at times, but there were a lot of guys on the team having really bad games. But Kulak since then has really quieted things down, and he's been a helpful presence for Vinny Desharnais of late. So yeah, I think it is just ride with it, right? Like just ride with it. And the points are going to come. The results are there. And as long as the results are there and everybody's contributing to a certain extent or in their own kind of role, I think they're okay. YouTube, Trev, what would you say to Big Uke there?
100%. Just going back to Darnell there. Sorry, I kind of lost what the question was.
Sorry, buddy. I threw a heater at you.
No worries, but just referring to last game, just talking about the defense. Even when Darnell Nurse jumped on the rush, a lot of people were blaming him. Saying you cost Stuart Skinner his shutout. He wouldn't have done that play.
Did they say that?
Yeah, I had I was seeing a few comments, but I think they're learning from their mistakes. He wouldn't have done that if it was a 1-0 game, 2-1 game. I think he's starting to realize they had a lot of time to play with one, but like just the fact that sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. What was I saying here? Oh, you know what, Tommy, you're
Nurse getting heat from people.
Yeah. I don't think he would have. I don't think. Oh man, I lost my train of thought completely.
That's okay.
On this
It'll
one.
Come back to you at the most innocuous time this evening, and you'll be like, "Damn, I wish I was on the air right now." Big Uke, I'm going to stack up a text from Big Uke. He also chimed in with, "I'm saying the same thing I said last game. First 10 minutes is so important. Get a goal early, maybe a nice save. Minnie is tired. Cannot let them hang around. End the game in the first period again." Big Uke, I'm with you on that. Vance Van Vandervan says, "Does YouTube Trev have another miraculous prediction?"
For tonight, yeah, let's see. I think Evander Kane will be scoring tonight. I think Bouchard he scored the last game that they played against Minnesota Wild, and he's kind of on a heater right now. So expect good things from him, and as well with Leon Draisaitl. That whole line didn't really do a heck of a whole lot last game. So I think tonight they're gonna show up. So those three players I think will get off on the scoreboard tonight. That's my prediction.
I like it. Vance Van Vandervan, Texas says, here's your cool bet line of the day. Plus 12 wins before media stops asking the Oilers about their crappy start to the season. Yes. I mean, you have to ask them about it because it was so pathetic. 2-9-1, especially in a year where a lot of people picked them to be contenders or Stanley Cup favorites. With the wins, Vance Van Vandervan, the noise and that premise and set up to a question will eventually go away. If it doesn't, if the wins don't pile up and they don't get themselves into a playoff spot relatively quickly, let's say by the end of the month, then yeah, that poor start will be alluded to frequently and often. This one via the nasty chat from Mike Smith says, about the previous question, any thoughts about Connor Brown? I say keep being patient. Mike, we chatted about it earlier, pretty early on the show. And yeah, it's frustrating because someone asked about him. It hasn't been worth it. Obviously, the $4 million, the low initial salary, and then the 3.225 bonus for playing the 10th game. 1 point's not good enough in 17 games. With I think he's -6 if I can recall off the top of my head. Yeah, I'm looking here. Yeah, -6 with 2 penalty minutes. It's just ineffective generally this season, and no, not worth the $4 million that they're giving him. But the one comparison I pointed to is and this is an old reference, Mike Pekka. If he could be like Mike Pekka, if his game gets better as the year progresses, if he becomes a contributing factor as the year progresses, especially down the stretch, if they can roll 3 lines comfortably against anybody or the majority of the league and the majority of the good teams in the NHL, and he's a contributing factor to that, I think that's good. And then if he could put up points in the postseason and come up clutch and be good defensively, especially when he does get his PK minutes, if he could be or have the type of year Mike Pekka did back in 2006 with the Oilers, where he started out bad and then he kind of got better as the year went on. And then late in the season, the veteran savvy kicked in and he was a force in the postseason among many. Then I think, people in the noise and everyone would go, well, do you bring him back again? Yeah, but not for $4 million. That has to happen. But right now, 1 point through 17 games, no bueno. Simply no bueno.
Yeah.
Now do you know who Mike Pekka is, Trev?
Yeah, like the name was always familiar, but I didn't know the story of him for sure. But no, just talking about Connor Brown, 1 goal, and we kind of seen it with a few players this season, and I've kind of said this before, but one goal, goes such a long way with a lot of players. McLeod, he said, the empty netter, it was so nice. What does he do the next game? He gets a goal. Warren Foegele earlier in the year, he scores and that was in Nashville, I believe. He scored his first goal against, and the next shift he scored as well, I'm pretty sure. If it wasn't Nashville, I know he scored twice in one game. So like Connor Brown, it's just going to take 1 goal and all that pressure is going to be gone. It's in his head, right? He's in the Canadian market. He knows the talk that's going around the city, like it's got to be annoying for him. So it's going to release so much pressure for him, and once he scores, he can just focus on playing some hockey. So that's my thoughts there.
Nasty chat. I see it's buzzing a little bit. Box Pounder says, Tommy really likes to say Mike Pekka. Mike Pekka. Scott Aroni says, with my eye test, he is starting to get there. That's in regard to Connor Brown. Robertson P says, LOL, Pekka is the perfect example. Defensive wizard who took all year to warm up in Edmonton, and also adds it's worth the $4 million if he rocks the playoffs. Scott Aroni also says Brown did not play all of last year. Give him a beat to catch up. That's from Dwight. That's a Dwight Schrute reference there. Well done there, Robertson. Let's go to Dr. Gonzo. Dr. Gonzo says, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Brown is stellar in the soapbox puck battles. That's huge in a 7-game series, especially playing with highly talented players. He's on the right track. And Mike Smith says, sorry, I missed it. Thanks for that, Mike. No problemo. But yeah, I think it's on the mind of a bunch of people in oil country and worth talking about again, certainly in an hour and a half pregame show. VR Montenegro says, I want to know what Captain Hunch sees from his Minority Report-esque bathtub. What is that? What is that a reference to?
I have no idea what VR Montenegro is talking about. Report-esque bathtub? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. He has to clarify on that because I'm a little lost now.
Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe it's a conversation.
I'm for sure missing something.
Potentially. Yeah. And Jenna, last name Tills.
Good old Jenna.
Hello, Jenna. Says Peter Ing. You want to talk about a funny name from back in the day? Peter Ing. Do you know who Peter Ing is? Young YouTube Trev.
Yeah, of course. No, I don't know Peter Ing.
You don't know?
Nah.
Like 1990, 1991, backup goalie. I believe in a trade they got him, the Oilers did, from Toronto when they sent Grant Fuhr over, if I'm not mistaken.
No,
Peter Ing.
I don't remember that. I wasn't born then.
Looking it up right now. if that is a trade, because it'll haunt me if I don't know.
Yeah. No.
Was he in that trade?
One thing I kind of want to talk while we're talking about Connor Brown. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets moved up to the first line tonight. Now that Connor McDavid's really buzzing. I don't know if Draisaitl's bringing it nearly as much as Connor McDavid is right now. So if he's in the right place at the right time, Connor McDavid, or Connor Brown, that could work. And I think it might work out as well, just because Zach Hyman is kind of he's controlling the puck way more, and he's skating with it. So maybe that'll I could definitely see that tweak happening this game just to get Connor Brown going. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened.
Peter Ing was traded from Toronto with Vincent Damphousse, Luke Richardson, Scott Thornton, and future considerations and cash to Edmonton for Glenn Anderson, Craig Berube, and Grant Fuhr. That's a big trade. That is a big trade. Then Edmonton flipped him to Detroit in 1993 for a 7th rounder in the 94 draft when they selected Chris Wickenheiser. That is a Peter Ing reference. Yeah.
Wait, did Craig Berube play for the Oilers? No, did he?
He was a member of the Oilers franchise, but he
never
something
new every day. Yeah.
Yeah. I think if I remember correctly, they.
Yeah, just looking at his DB now, he doesn't have any games played under the Oilers, but yeah,
and not in the AHL. But I think he signed with Edmonton, but never played for them. After a couple of years of bouncing between the NHL and the AHL with Philadelphia.
Interesting. Would you look at that?
Yeah. So who was that on the nasty chat that brought up Peter Ing? Was that VR Montenegro or Box Pounder? That was Jenna.
Oh, that was good old Jenna. Yeah.
Great obscure Oiler reference.
Yeah.
Spruce Grove Corey, Texas, 780-218-9999, says, turn on the pregame, and what do I see? Gazzola. And he loved Pekka as an Oiler. Thank you, Spruce Grove Corey. He was good as an Oiler late that season, but the start was not great. That year actually did not start particularly well for a team that had loaded up with Chris Pronger and Michael Pekka. And then, they snuck into the playoffs late in the season, and then they went on a crazy run after all those trades at the deadline. Spacek, who we jokingly referred to as Space K back in the day. Tarnstrom was there, I believe. There was also Samsonov, who the Oilers traded Marty Reasoner for. They loaded up, and the team was pretty good. Ales Hemsky had a good year. Jarrett Stoll had a good year. That was the arrival, if you will, of Sean Horkoff. There was a contract people hated, so good memories.
What a time!
What a time!
That was just when I started. Yeah, that was just when I started watching Oilers hockey. I remember my stepdad just cheering them on like crazy, and I was just I was still a kid. I'm like, oh, what's this team from Southern Alberta? All I really knew was Calgary Flames. But then I'm like, oh, this team seems pretty sweet. But yeah, all those names, like I just, it takes me back to just the time when I was a kid. I don't really have a heck of a lot of memories with them.
Yeah, no, it was crazy back then. I remember coming out of that lockout and how crazy the trades were and all the deals that were happening. And now it was a cap world, and Edmonton and Calgary and smaller market teams in Ottawa were going to be able to compete with the big boys like Detroit, Dallas, New York, Toronto, Philadelphia, all those teams that were signing guys for ridiculous amounts of money and basically had an unlimited budget compared to Edmonton. I think Edmonton had like 35 to 40 million in budget. And then that first year of the cap, I think was 36 million. Like Pronger was a $5 or $6 million a year guy. That's crazy. Crazy.
That is crazy.
Right? How things have changed. Next year, we're talking about $87 million cap?
Yep. I think it's like just right around $4 million increase. So
yeah,
not bad.
Yeah, exactly. D-Rock Texan says, I took Connor Brown on single to score tonight. LOL. Good luck, D-Rock. Maybe it happens. He did hit the post the other night. And then Barry the Cheater. Hello, Barry the Cheater, with a great photo of his TV, big screen with the pregame show on. Says, love seeing you on the big screen. Hashtag pregame and postgame for life. Appreciate that very, very much, Barry the Cheater. This new medium that we're able to tap into is neat, and it has brought in some new listeners and viewers, certainly. So tell your friends, keep it going as we roll on. All right, a couple of texts to get into as we close things out. Hontorio Momes, hello, Hontorio Momes says Hyman gets 2 tonight, 97, and him have some magic going. And then Mike Smith says, who was hated more, Sean Horkoff or Tom Poti? Well, Horkoff for the contract, Poti for poor defensive play, I think, and frustrating defensive play. So there you go. Do you know Tom Poti? Do you know Tom Poti, YouTube, Trev?
No, that's a new one.
This is hilarious.
Tom Poti, what the heck?
Tom Poti was an offensive defenseman that the Oilers got. He was Boston. He's a Boston kid. He had like severe allergies, like food allergies. His parents would send him like specific foods and like
that'll happen.
All of it, like these chips that he would always eat from the Massachusetts area. So they would send him all this food. Tom Poti was an offensive defenseman, got his start in Edmonton, lasted a long time in the NHL. He was a big guy, but he wasn't the toughest. And he became a whipping boy at times for Oilers fans.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, never heard of this guy. He put up pretty good numbers, actually. Not bad.
Yeah.
Tom Poti. That's another one. I'm learning a lot tonight, Tommy.
Happy to provide. This was my formative years. I think Poti came in late 90s, so I would have been 13 or 14 years of age. And I remember him, and like he would wow you at times. And then other times you're just like, oh, what is he doing? But some great references to the past. All right, let's go into lineups one last time as the Oilers take on the Wild, and it'll be Edmonton looking to take advantage of a Minnesota team that is playing its fourth game in 6 nights and had its 4-game winning streak snapped last night in Vancouver. 2-0 decision there. Of course, Edmonton trying to build on the momentum of a solid 6-1 win over the Carolina Hurricanes on Wednesday. The Oilers trying to get to 6 straight victories for the Oil tonight. McDavid between Nugent-Hopkins and Hyman. Draisaitl with Kane and Brown. McLeod between Fogle and Janmark. That line, a really good night against the Hurricanes. It is Janmark's 31st birthday and his 500th career NHL game. Fourth line, James Hamblin with Sam Gagner and Derek Ryan. Nurse paired up with Ceci, Ekholm with Bouchard, Kulak and Desharnais. No Holloway, no Ernie, no Gleason for the Oil. As for the Wild, Marco Rossi with Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Zuccarello. Joel Eriksson-Ek with Marcus Johansson and Matt Boldy. Frederick Gaudreau with Marcus Foligno and Patrick Maroon. Connor Dewar with Brandon Duhaime and Ryan Hartman. On defense, Jonas Brodin with Brock Faber. Jacob Middleton with Jared Spurgeon. Dakota Mermis in for Alex Goligoski, paired up with John Merrill. No Zach Bogosian, no Dakota Mermis for the Wild tonight. Starting goalies, Stuart Skinner, 9-7-1 on the year, 303 goals against average, 889 save percentage with the shutout in 18 games. He is 1-1 versus the Wild. And then you've got Marc-Andre Fleury, the future Hall of Famer, multi-time Stanley Cup winning goaltender, 39 years of age, 4-4-2 this season, 321 GAA, 884 save percentage in 10 games. 16-5-1 is Fleury with a 232 goals against average and 932 save percentage with 2 shutouts in 22 games against Edmonton over the course of his career. That's going to do it for the Oil Stream pregame show. Big thank you to everyone who tuned in, anyone who watched us, and for texting in. We appreciate you. For YouTube, Trev and Matty Kassian, I'm Tom Gazzola saying enjoy the Oilers versus the Wild. We'll talk to you on the post-game show. Ciao for now.